Hello, we're back. We're dealing with eugenics. Eugenics is back, and we're using the book Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, her chapter on eugenics. I have to do this video now because the church down the street is starting to get weird and my computer's starting to act up. I think it's overheating or something. I don't know. Let's get through this if we can. Although their cruel acts of genocide were primarily directed against Jews and white Europeans, National Socialists also considered an admixture with people of African descent intolerable. For example, the Rhineland bastard were the offspring born during the 1920s of German women and French Somalian soldiers who were stationed in the Rhineland during its post-World War I occupation. The Reichsborn Führer Richard Walter Dare declared, "As a Rhinelander, I demand sterilization for all mulattoes with whom we were saddled by the black shame of the Rhine." German hereditary health courts judged the reproductive fitness of poor and ill Gentiles on a case-by-case basis, but for blacks and Afro-Germans, visual and verbal evidence of African ancestry was enough to justify immediate secret sterilization in an on-site clinic under Special Commission Number 3, which was devised by Eugene Fisher in 1937. For example, Frankfurt Health Office records, June 19, 1937, note, "The German citizen Josef Feck, born on 26 September 1920 and residing in Mainz, is a descendant of the former colonial occupation troops North Africa and distinctively displays the corresponding anthropological characteristics. For that reason, he is to be sterilized. His mother consents to the sterilization." Consents is weird. Does she have a choice? It's like a lot of black people today. Do we really have the choices? We think we're free because we can go on vacation. Really? It's insanity. Upon demand, Afro-German men had to produce health documents certifying that they had been sterilized, and although the sterilization of at least 385 children is well documented, an entire generation of Afro-Germans was robbed of its fertility. One of the things, too, that the stories about what was done to Germany, and why even today some German women will veer to black men, is when the white people won the war, World War I and World War II, they insulted the other white people by leaving black people in charge. So that, man, he's so loud in that church, just yelling about nothing. It's a shame that I have to do this and compete with that, and that wins, which shows you everything you need to know about black folks. But white people will insult the other white people they conquer by putting black people in charge. So even here, after the Civil War, and someone told me this, and you have to tell me if it's true, most HBCUs are in the South. And a lot of them are funded by white liberal dollars from the North. Now, people move around now more than they used to, so you have a lot of liberals in the South too, but someone told me that that was the case. And I know most of them that I can think of are Howard is the South, Morgan State is the South, is it Spelman's the South? Of course, Virginia Union's the South. South Carolina State is the South. So most of the HBCUs in the South. But that could also be because during Reconstructions, a lot of during Reconstruction, not Reconstructions. I was reading something else about the second Reconstruction, so excuse me. During Reconstruction, a lot of black people created public school systems. So it could be that too. And I recently found out the first HBCU was way before the Civil War. So I don't know what's true or not, but I always found that to be interesting. And maybe it just wasn't needed in the North. That could be the reason why. Maybe I had to do a deep dive into that later. But here you go: sterilization and parents going along. And I can tell you, having grown up as a black child, my mother went along with a lot of things. She had no idea what institutions were doing to me. And I knew, I want to say first grade or second grade, first or second grade, might have been second grade. First or second grade, I knew my mother couldn't help me systemically and institutionally, which is, when I think back on it, it's a horrifying situation, but I didn't think it was horrifying that time. I just knew, oh, my mother really can't help me here. And I have to kind of navigate this myself. I had an older sister that raised us, but they couldn't. The black woman experience is different for some reason, even though they were there. It was just as horrible, but there were some things that, I guess, white sympathy or something, that they just were able to push aside or push down, that I think black boys. And again, I would have to do a deeper dive into it, but it seems like even when I listen to black women speak about our situations, we all grew up in the same, during the crack era, doing the same things. I think they have a better ability of pushing down, or were able, or had the space to push down these things or ignore these things. Now, it's leading to a lot of health problems, that because that stuff comes up somewhere, that I think we're starting to see. So neither one, I mean, it's just, black life is horrible. Men, women, it doesn't matter. Even if you have a little something. Sometimes when you have a little something, it's worse. However, Nazi eugenicists frequently observed that their laws to bar Jewish Aryan mating were more liberal than were American laws to separate people of African descent from white genetic pool. Germans held that a person who was 1/4 Jewish was a legal Aryan and thus fit to marry a German, but parallel marriages and mating between whites and blacks were illegal in much of the United States, in effect punishable by death, lynching. The one-drop laws of many southern states counted anyone who had even 1/32nd African heritage as black. Other laws, such as the 1924 the Virginia Racial Integrity Law Act, and we're in the 20th century now, denominated anyone with a Negro blood at all as black. Editors of German medical journals learned a great deal about eugenic prescription from studying American medical journals. The medical system that I keep telling you can't trust. Whose charts precisely detail which racial mixtures were tolerable in marriages to whites, who was white enough to vote, and so on. In fact, a cordial rivalry characterized the relationship between German and American eugenicists. The Germans are beating us at our own game, Virginian eugenicist Dr. Joseph S. Dejournette sighed in thinly veiled admiration during a 1934 speech in which he urged the Virginia legislature to expand its sterilization laws. They love the Nazis over here. I didn't realize how close the Nazis came to taking over the United States. But if you look at it now, that's why I'm not surprised by what's happening now. That we're back in 1930s Germany now. However, eugenics initiatives, like much of the unethical racial experimentation in the United States, suffered more than moral flaws. They were simply illogical. There are several reasons why any experiments in improving health and purifying racial stock by removing certain tainted individuals from populations will fail to root out the unwanted genes, but scientists had known of at least one since 1917. Before the advent of genetic screening tests, one had only classic Mendelian genetics to rely upon, and one could determine whether a person was a carrier of a genetic taint only by the health of his children. Too late for eugenics measures to prevent breeding. English geneticist P.C. Punnett had determined by 1917 that eugenic steps to prevent the reproduction of people exhibited disease symptoms would fail to detect so many carriers that they would be rendered useless. This knowledge made eugenics strategy and goals scientifically invalid as well as morally repugnant. So again, you have the medical industry in there testing people, making assumptions, and all of our DNA is on file. Because we've all been to the doctor in the last 10, 15 years. We've all been there. We've all gotten blood tests. We've gotten COVID tests. And I think anyone born after a certain period has their DNA taken when they're babies, I believe. Again, we have to do deep dives into this. You have to do research into this to really figure it out. Most people say don't want to look at it, they turn away, but a lot of this is true. And how are they doing eugenics today? So they can use our medical situation and our ethnic situation to say, for instance, African Americans are more susceptible to obesity. That might not be true. It might be our dieting habits. That might not be an ethnic thing. It just means the way we eat. But that doesn't mean that we're ethnically predisposed. They can lower the number of what is diabetes, right? Tell you a story. When did I get my surgery? 2010. So I was dragging myself, and I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't. So I was hiding it from my then wife. Finally, I got caught. I got busted. And they were checking me out, giving me all kinds of exams. The first thing they said was, he's dragging one side of his body. He's an African American male. He had a stroke. They took a brain scan and showed me the brain scan, and the guy actually said, "Oh man, your brain is beautiful." Yeah, I thought that was a little weird and creepy. I backed out of the room. Then they said, "Well, we got to do a full body because we can't figure out what this guy." They did a full body and they realized, no, your disc in your neck collapsed and it's sitting on your nerve, and that's why the part of your body is. And I say all that to say, they could take ethnic groups and make assumptions and give you treatment based on that. Now, what if I hadn't gone in basically healthy? What if I had fell out and passed out? And they said, well, he's an African American male, half of his body is filled, but he had a stroke. Give him for stroke. They would have killed me. And this is happening to us all the time. And my family probably would have thought, yeah, he probably did have a stroke. It was a very stressful time. This institutional witch had kicked me out of the school system, and she was a horrible human being. She's still around. She's a horrible human being. And I just hope her children are not as horrible as her. It was a very stressful time, and people probably would have said, yeah. And this is why you you have to be careful. You can't trust these people. Medical apartheid, you must get this book. You must read this book. It's in libraries, but this is my personal collection. I bought this. You're gonna have to start paying for books. I think the libraries, depending on where you are, local governments may start to, as federal money starts to shrink from local governments. And remember, all disasters and issues, they are local. Homelessness, dispossession, evictions. As Medicaid goes away, more states are going to have to start paying for these things. I think your libraries are going to start getting sacrificed. So try to get these books. Also, develop a relationship with your library so that when that happens, you may be able to get some of these books for your personal collection for free. We're going to go back to a time where the public library may be gone, but you may have to take those books into your home and we may have to share books. I'm trying to figure out a way to, I was trying to do like a Netflix for books years ago to why you get the books from me, I mail them to you, send you return address and see. So I might try to do that again. Um, Maybe make a space in my house for a study area, but that's kind of, it makes me vulnerable to, um, can make me vulnerable to all kinds of things, danger. So we'll see, but I'm gonna try to figure out how to take my collection and make it available to you. Maybe I'll just digitize it and charge a fee. But then you can get this stuff online too, so I don't know. We'll see. But try to get a relationship with your libraries. Try to, so that you can build your library, your private library. Because the public library could be on the block. So I get these important books. I try to get them and hold them and hold them as much as I can. I had to give away a lot when I was separated and divorced because I was living on the street and I just didn't. I had to put stuff in storage. But I should have sacrificed the furniture and kept the books. Be honest with you. Some books I had to sell just because times got hard. But I tried to keep the ones that were gifts from people and ones like this. Um, until next time, try to be safe and try to be careful.